Hello and welcome to Prime Code Media. In this video, I'll be discussing the opt-in styling of tables with Bootstrap. The documentation says due to widespread use of table elements across third-party widgets like calendars and date pickers, Bootstrap's tables are opt-in. It says here all you need to do is to add a class base or base class table to any table and then extend that with optional modifier classes or custom styles. It further goes on to say all table styles are not inherited in Bootstrap, meaning any nested table can be styled independent from the parent. I'll explain this with an example later. Now, here is an example of a table that we are shown here in this documentation, and then down here is the example code behind this table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this code here, and then I am going to paste it inside my code editor here like so. Now let's go view this table inside my browser. Now let me refresh. Now here's how this table looks inside my browser. So I'm going to use this table to show how you can use Bootstrap to style or modify tables. Now Bootstrap allows us to use contextual classes to color tables, table rows, or individual cells. So these are examples of these contextual classes. I'm just going to try out one of these classes on my table. I'm going to try out table primary. Let me see how table primary looks on my table. So I'm going to come inside here and use this class. This is the base class table, and then I'm going to extend this with my preferred color, this primary. Now let's go back to the browser and see how this table looks with this class used on it. Now let me refresh. Now here's how our table looks with the table primary class used on it. Let's try out another one. Let's see how warning looks. Just going to replace the primary with warning. Let's go back to the browser and refresh. Now here's how our table looks. So these are just examples of how you can use these contextual classes to change the colors of the tables, table rows, or individual cells. Now what we can also do to tables using Bootstrap is that we can use a table striped class to add a zebra striping to table rows, and this is an example of the class that we will have to use. So it will be table striped. This is the class I am going to also use inside my code editor. I'm going to add this zebra striping to my table by adding this class table striped like so. Let's go check it out. Now let me refresh here and see how the zebra striping looks on my table. So here's my table now with zebra striping. So let me just change this warning to light. I think the zebra striping will be much visible. Let me refresh and see. So I think the zebra striping is much visible on a light color. So this is how our table now looks with this zebra striping. Now as you can see, at the moment I've only added the zebra striping to the rows, but what we can also do is that we can also add zebra striping to columns. So I'm going to add the zebra striping to the columns of this table without removing the zebra striping on the rows of this table. So inside my code editor here, I'm going to add the zebra striping, but before I do that, let's just go back to the documentation and see how we should go about doing that. So if you scroll down a bit here, you'll see here is the class that we will have to use if we want to add zebra striping to our columns. So it will be table striped columns. So let me add this class inside here. So it will be table striped columns like so. Now let's refresh and see how our table looks with striping, zebra striping on the columns. So this is how our table now looks with zebra striping on both our rows and our columns. So I'm going to go back to our to the code editor and remove the zebra striping on the columns, because the aim here was just to show you that in addition to adding the zebra striping to the rows, we can also do the same to the columns. Now, the documentation says these classes can also be added to table variants. So, for example, I'm just going to do or to change the variant here on this table. Let me first refresh. As you can see, this is how our table or the zebra striping looks on this table at the moment. So I'm going to change this light to dark. For example, I'm going to change this to dark. Now let's see how the zebra striping looks on dark. So this is how the zebra striping looks on this variant. So let me also try out and see how it will look on success. For example, success, refresh, and let's see how this will look. So this is how now our table looks, and this is what the documentation means here when it says these classes can also be added to table variants. As you can see, they even went as far as using these different examples here, table tag, and then this table striped class to add the zebra striping to the table. Bootstrap also allows us to give table rows a hover state, and in order to give a table a hover state or table row a hover state, the class that we will have to use is this table hover, and this will enable a hover state on table rows within a table body. So let me go into my code editor and let's put this into practice. So I am going to add a table hover class to my table like so. Now let's see how our table looks with the hover state. Now as you can see, when I hover over this row here, it changes its color. So maybe what I need to do is just to remove the zebra striping on my table so that we have a clear view of this hover state. Let's first refresh to see if the zebra striping is removed. So now our table has no zebra striping, so you'll see when I hover over these rows, they change their colors. You know, the background color changes. So these rows, all of them now have a hover state, and we have achieved this by adding a class of table hover to our table. We can also add borders to our tables. So in order to add borders to our tables, so for example, I'm just going to come in here on the table borders. So the class that we will have to use in order to add borders to our table is this. So this table border that class. So I'm going to now use it on my table. So I'm going to add a border like so, table border. Now let's see how our table looks with borders. So our table right now has a border, but at the moment the border is not visible. So before I even go further, let me just go and change this to light. So I'm going to change replace success with light like so here. Now let me refresh. Okay, fine. I have changed the color of this table. Now, as I was saying earlier, I have just added a border to my table, but as you can see, the border is not clearly visible. So, what Bootstrap allows us to do is that we can add a color to our border. Okay, so we can add a color to our border, and in order to add colors to our border, the documentation says here border color utilities can be added to change colors. So as you can see in this example, the borders of this table are blue, and if I shift this by adding this here border primary class. So this is the class that I am going to use on my table. So let me go back inside here, and then I'm going to say border primary. Now let's see how our table will look with a border. So here's how our table now looks. Our table now has a uh, border. Actually, we did add a border, but the border was not visible, and the reason why we have added this color is to just make sure that the border is clear. So we've added this border color by adding this class here. There is a border primary. We can even change it to another color. Let's see if how it looks. If we change it to, for example, success. Let's go back and check. Let's refresh. So we've changed the border color to success. So you can change the colors of the borders to anything. So that will be a choice. So all you will have to do is to use this class here. So you will say border and then specify the color that you want to have for your border. Now, as I promised earlier, I want to show you how Bootstrap allows us to style nested tables differently from their parent tables, as the documentation puts it up here. Let me scroll up here. As the documentation puts it up here, as it says, all tables all table styles are not inherited in Bootstrap, meaning any nested tables can be styled independent from the parent. So I'm going to put this into practice. To do that, I am going to come inside my code editor, and then I am going to copy this table here. I'm going to copy this whole table, all of it here, like so, and then I am going to come inside the second table row, inside the third table data, inside the third TD, and then I am going to paste this table. So now we have a table inside another table. All I'm going to do right now, I'm just going to remove the table head, because the main table has the table head. So this table inside here, I'm going to remove this table head. So this table is only going to have a table body. Now let's go back to our browser and see how this table looks now with another table inside. Let's refresh. Now, as you can see, we have now the main table, and then inside this table we have another table. So we can isolate this table for styling. So we can style this table differently from its parent table. As you can see, this table is the child table of this table. So I'm going to style this, or I'm just going to give it a different background color from the main table. So I'm going to do that inside here. So inside here, I'm just going to change this color. Here, I'm just going to change the color here to dark. Now, as you can see, we now have a dark table inside a light table. We can even change, for example, the color of the borders, like so. Let me just change the color of the border. So I'll change the border of this one to, let's use danger and see how danger looks. Let me refresh. Now, as you can see, the parent table is light and has a green border, and it has a child table that is dark and it has a red border. And this is what this documentation meant here when it says all table styles are not inherited in Bootstrap, and which means that any nested table can be styled independent from the parent, and which is what we have just done here. And that brings us to the end of our discussion. I have really just scratched the surface regarding what you can do to tables using Bootstrap. For more, please check out the documentation. Everything that you need to know regarding this is inside this documentation. Thank you so much for watching. Let's code again next time. Take care. Bye.